Hong Kong for the last generation.
I'm MadeInWashington.com, the Republican candidate for governor.
Have sexual relations with
I realized that this is something he is
We're not going to be able to solve our problems if we get distracted by sideshows and carnival barkers.
One Republican, one Democrat, and you discuss the issues that matter in today's local, state, national, and global politics. Hosted by Steve Hickson with co-hosts John Stanberry and Franklin Chansey. This is Backfire.
Hey, welcome to another week of news and events and whatever else we find to talk about this morning with Backfire with Franklin Chansey, John Stanberry, and myself, Steve Doball Hickson, and
who's adorned in a spiffy holiday hat.
That's right. Happy holiday.
If you're watching online.
Happy holiday. Hey, and by the way, Merry Christmas, too.
Merry Christmas.
As we're watching the story about the woman who stole toys from Toys for Tots. Isn't Christmas wonderful for everybody?
She wanted to make sure the kids had a good Christmas.
She stole from them.
Well, I said she wanted to make sure the kids her kids had a good Christmas. Oh, my goodness, so much stuff to talk about. Where do we start? Let's be nice today. It's getting close to Christmas, and it's a time to be humble and not talk about negative things.
But, oh, Lord, it's hard when you're perfect in every way, right?
It is, but, oh, Lord, it is hard when you're perfect.
It just came to me.
Can't wait to look in the mirror, Franklin.
I was talking about Steve, not me.
Well, it looks like they approved the property to build a new school out here on Georgetown Road. So, Candies Creek Cherokee Elementary School. I believe is what it's going to be called. That's going to require extra money just to build a sign that big.
Candies Creek what?
Cherokee Elementary School. Now, they're going to call it Cherokee, and next thing you know, they're going to be a big hoo-la-la about changing the name.
Interestingly enough, we had this exact same debate in the 1970s when they built Truett Junior High School. That was one of the names that was under consideration at that time, and they opted not to do that then. So,
well, you know, the most recent polling on the whole Redskins debacle came out that the Indians don't mind the name at all. It's only liberal progressives that kind of get incensed about these things.
I think it would be nice if that was my bloodline and they talked about it in positive ways.
Well, you could consider it an honor. It all depends on your perspective. Of course, for me, it'd be a bigger honor if it wasn't a school that was built in a filled-in swamp behind a bunch of commercial development that all the parents will have to drive through to get to the school.
And you've also got to remember that regarding the Redskins, they kind of stink, so that may be an insult.
Oh, that may be the insult part, is that it's the Redskins,
oh, God.
Not the name.
Cleveland's -- 2 in job growth. That's pretty good news.
In the state?
No, national.
In the nation.
In the nation, yeah.
Well,
I don't know what they took that against. I guess maybe towns our size.
Per capita, I would say.
Per capita.
Per capita. Okay. Well, that's pretty good. You know, that just shows that Republicans can run a winner, doesn't it, John?
Yeah, but I will try to be fair. When you're doing a per capita thing like that, if you have a smaller town, you get one industry in, you can have a pretty nice per capita jump.
Yeah.
If you're New York City and it's 10 million people, you got to have a lot of industry come in to have that same per capita jump.
Let me ask you, I'm sitting here looking at an article, and it's about Philadelphia. A judge dismissed a lawsuit aimed at blocking a tax on sodas set to take effect in Philadelphia next month, intended to benefit educational and neighborhood initiatives. A 1.5 cent tax per ounce amounts to about 18 cents on a 12-ounce can of soda, or $1.44 on a 6-pack. The soda proposals have failed in more than 30 states, but there's a lot of states that have these taxes now. So this is basically a new tax. I hadn't heard of the soda tax that much.
Well, it came out of Bloomberg in New York City.
Yeah,
that's where he started.
Well, I guess they're it's another way for them to raise some money, but it's just I mean, how many ways can you raise money?
Well, why don't you try cutting spending?
Well, I understand. I agree. But, I mean, I can't imagine the soda companies sitting around.
Well, I mean, there's multiple problems here. It's a declining revenue stream. Any kind of tax like that, I mean, what they do is they say, okay, we want to do this because we want to discourage too much soda drinking. Look, I'm not, sodas, they're sugar. They mess with your metabolism. They eat into your teeth. They do all kinds of bad things for you. But it's a declining revenue stream. So if it's successful like you want, then whatever you're counting on that money, to pay for will decline over time because people will quit drinking as much soda. So it's always it's bad fiscal policy from the standpoint of it's a declining revenue stream. But also, for me, that's the wrong way to do that. And that's sort of, Franklin will jump in here, that's the Democrat version. You force people to do what you want instead of making it advantageous for them to do what you want. We're going to force you to do this. And it's a regressive tax. The poor probably, Franklin's party always talks about how the poor are put upon. These are the Democrats increasing taxes on the poorest of Americans.
Yes, I noticed, well, since you brought it up, John, that a Republican state senator in West Tennessee proposed yesterday allowing cities to raise the sales tax a half cent because city revenue streams are struggling while the state has a surplus. And his justification that he gave was what was really important was we not raise the property tax.
Well, look. Franklin, you can debate which tax you raise.
I didn't say any such thing.
No, I'm not disagreeing with you. I don't know whether I would support that or not. I'm against any tax increases. And so my point would be, matter of fact, I will tell you, family reunion this weekend, my uncle filled in this past year as a state representative. And we talked about this, that the state has a surplus, and there's a real battle about what to do with it. Of course, my gut reaction was give it back to the people that earned it. Give us a tax cut. Now, the problem with that is what's the revenue going to be next year? We've got a surplus this year. So you're always trying to kind of find that balance. But he said there's a lot of debate about that. Do you cut some of the representatives want to cut the food tax more because that is regressive on the poorest of Tennesseans. So there's a lot of different proposals for it. But my point would be, if you get rid of some of these government programs that probably aren't necessary, maybe we could cut everybody's taxes in all kinds of ways.
Well, I think that's going to be coming our way pretty soon, surely, with our new leadership.
With the deficits to go with it.
Every time federal government has cut taxes, total revenue to the government has increased.
Every time they've done that, the deficit has skyrocketed.
Because we spend too much.
Because
we spend too much.
Cutting taxes requires no political courage. Cutting services requires courage.
Answer this fact.
Until they get courage,
but
I don't want to hear about it.
Comment on this fact. JFK, you all's lying, cut taxes and total revenue to the government increased. Yes or no?
Yes.
All right. Reagan, cut taxes, total revenue to the government increased or decreased?
Yes.
George W., cut taxes, total revenue, increased or decreased? It increased.
Okay.
So, when we cut taxes...
Whoa. You only want to tell half the story.
No, I do. I agree with you. I want you to agree to half the story.
Every one of those, every single example you just used, every one of them, all dramatically raise spending. Every one of them.
Right. That's actually what I want you to agree with me on.
And you say that the tax cuts what produced the revenue. You don't know that.
Franklin, every economist in the country knows that.
No, they don't.
Yes, they do.
When you cut taxes and you increase government spending, you really stimulate the economy. That's what all three of them did.
Franklin, when you cut taxes, for example, I'll give you a great example.
How about Kansas? They cut spending and cut taxes. What happened? Their economy went in the tank, and it's still there.
You have to be careful with it.
Well, okay, there's the point.
My point is, when you cut taxes, the cut in taxes does not increase the deficit. If you cut taxes and you pare back, or even if you just hold spending even. No, it didn't,
No.
Franklin. It's
Kansas,
the spending
Kansas,
increase.
you got it right now. They cut the spending, they cut the taxes, and they've got a huge budget
Franklin,
deficit
I'm
now.
not even advocating that you cut spending. If we could just hold it even, if we could just hold it flat, if you would cut taxes and hold spending flat, you would find the economy would explode.
You don't want to do that. You want to increase military spending.
Well, we do have to do that.
Okay, there you have it.
Well, then we
so
need
maybe you'll get the economic
Well, maybe
boost
we
you're
could
talking
get some
about.
of these people off of food stamps that your president got them on at historic
Maybe.
highs.
He did increase government spending.
He got food stamps at historic
He
high
didn't increase
enrollment
spending, did
levels. Now, you all have a
Did
real
he?
mess here. You say
Did
the
he,
economy's
John?
better, but yet we have more people in poverty, more people living off the
Because he
government.
did what you just advocated.
No, because he made the system to where you don't have to go look for a job anymore. He did away with the job requirement.
Okay, John.
Also, you can sign up and have a limp, too. Pretty easy and get something for it.
Disability has exploded as well.
That's what I was talking about. Let me talk about something here that this kind of goes along with what you two were talking about. And what we do know is that big companies like Apple do what they can within the law to avoid paying taxes. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
In some cases, no taxes are paid. It shouldn't be the bigger outrage is that we have corporate income tax at all. You know, why do we have corporate income tax? With most corporations just find a loophole to get around it.
Well, because most corporations tremendously use government infrastructure that we've built to make profits. Why shouldn't they contribute to it?
Well, you know,
It's not why shouldn't they contribute, it's how much should they
Well, it's not what he said. He just said, why should they be taxed at all?
well, they're paying a 3.8% tax over in Ireland, and $200 billion was paid in profits overseas by Apple.
Okay.
I mean,
Ireland, when they cut their corporate tax rate, saw a huge influx of companies coming to Ireland.
Yeah.
They saw employment
Well-
increase. They saw their revenue increase. They saw their economy grow.
you know, I don't know which way we're going to go, but
Besides, Franklin, how many times do you want to tax it? You tax the corporation. You tax the dividend. You tax the item that someone buys with the dividend. How many times does the government get to take a piece?
they tax you if you die.
Are you okay with all of that? Taxing it 3 and 4 and 5 times?
I don't know what the alternative to that would be, John.
Cut spending. Cut the size of government. Get the
Like I
government out of our
said,
lives.
tell your party to grow a backbone and stand up and campaign on the services they want to cut out.
EPA,
Until they do,
EPA,
shut the heck
We're
up
actually right
because
now,
you're all hypocrites.
The president-elect just appointed
That's
someone to the EPA that actually does want to rein them in, and your
eagerly await
people
to
went.
see it.
Your people went
eagerly await to
apoplectic.
see
Your
it.
people started talking about we're going to have dirty water and dirty air, and
50
people are going
years,
to die.
I've been listening to this drivel where y'all say the same thing every time and never have the courage of convictions behind it. I really don't
You have
care
a
about your
president-elect
cut
that
taxes
just
mantra
nominated
because
someone
it's
to
a
the
hoax.
EPA who is going to do that.
We shall see.
So I'm glad to hear you're going to support him.
We shall see.
I'm glad you said something about the Republicans manning up. Cause
I'm waiting to see it.
I want to read you something here. New York City offers post-election therapy to workers stressed out over Trump.
Paid for by the taxpayer.
Many New Yorkers may be feeling distressed and I can't say this word, vulnerable. Following the election results, we have seen that concerns expressed on social media, and we are monitoring them closely, the liberal mayor wrote in a recent email to city workers. The New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio is creating a citywide safe space for municipal employees, offering them therapy sessions to deal with election-related stress. Is this guy absolutely out of his mind or what?
Well, keep in mind, this guy claims to be a socialist/communist. That's who the Democrat Party elected.
Never heard that one.
He's a socialist.
That's a new one.
He admits to being a socialist. And, you know, their party, the DNC chairman, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, refused to tell the difference between a current Democrat and a socialist. So that's what their party's morphed into. Perhaps they can explain Venezuela to us.
Tell me about Venezuela.
Well, they're killing. They broke into the zoo and killed a zebra and ate it because they're starving to death.
Oh, yeah.
The government has ordered every citizen, lawyers,
Why are they starving to
doctors,
death, John?
Because the government confiscated the farms, confiscated the agricultural lands several years ago, and they failed to be able to produce because that's what socialism does. There's no incentive to produce, and now they're starving to death.
What else did you leave out of that story?
I didn't leave anything out.
Yes,
It's socialism, and it's the product of socialism.
Yes, you did.
What
He's a dictator who imposed his will, and his economy is collapsing.
They built their economy around oil. And when oil prices collapsed, they went in the
Franklin,
toilet.
not to the point where you have to weigh the money on a scale because of the inflation.
Yeah.
Not to the point where you have to
That
order
is what
people
happened.
into the agricultural fields. Not to the point where you have to...
I'm not pro-Venezuela,
imprison-
John.
Well, you mean
but
to
I
talk
can
to
pay
your party
attention
because
to
your party's
facts.
pro-Venezuela?
Well, really?
Yeah,
Really?
really.
All the effort that we put into developing alternative energy, which further suppressed oil prices, is pro-Venezuela?
I saw where they just asked for more money and overspending on a nuclear plant down in Georgia again.
Well, I mean, this...
How come we can't build a nuclear plant without just...
You mean like they do
Well,
all
I don't
through
know.
Europe?
They're all Republicans. Why can't you?
Because of the EPA? Because of government intervention
and you think
government
that, and you
regulation?
think that nuclear plants need less regulation?
I think that
Great.
nuclear plants
Perfect.
need to be freed up to be built like they're built all through Europe, Franklin. They build them all the time in Europe.
I'm telling you something. We can't build one without it being billions and billions over
We had a
budget.
super site, a Superfund site in Missouri, where the EPA had them incinerating the dirt. They've been working there for 20 years, spending billions and billions of dollars incinerating the dirt. They had a site in France that was contaminated with the same material to a greater extent. They put a foot of soil over the top of it, built a park on it, and they have had no increase in any kind of disease or cancer in the area.
Yeah.
But we've spent decades incinerating the dirt.
Tell that to the people at Love Canal.
Love
Frankly,
Canal.
you might want to go back and look at some of these things. For
Yeah.
example, Love Canal. I'll bring you the stats in on Love Canal. There wasn't any significant problems. There were some, don't get me wrong, but not to the extent. Everything here is about reasonableness. And to a liberal progressive,
it's not
it's about
reasonable.
empowering the government.
It's not reasonable to dump your crap out into the soil.
France
That's
did
not reasonable.
France covered the site with a foot of soil, had no problems. We've spent decades and billions of dollars burning the dirt.
I have no idea what John's talking about, but I would wager
That's
you right
because
now
a
that
liberal
it's
doesn't care about
90% crap.
results. He only cares about ideology.
Because I guarantee you he got it from some
Nope, actually, I saw it on the nightly
nutcake
news,
website.
Franklin. Nightly news.
You watched
And by
the
the way,
nightly news?
I would ask anybody out there, especially the people that think Franklin's right, please Google Venezuela and look at the suffering of the people under socialism.
I'm so glad you're there to help them, John. I'm
I
so
would
glad.
be there to help them by running
I'm
that
so
government out of
glad
business.
you will. You're
Instead
you're there
of
to help
supporting
them.
them the way your people do. The way your people bragged on murderers in Cuba.
The suggestion that we tried to help Venezuela is so bizarre, John.
Franklin, your people celebrated the death of a mass murderer in Cuba just a
Your
month ago.
people.
Yeah,
Who's
your
my
party.
people?
Your party celebrated Castro, who murdered thousands.
Because
He murdered more
there
people
is-
than
there
Hitler
is
did the
no
first
failure.
3 years of his
There is no
presidency.
failure, John. Your party won't double down on. None. It does not matter how abysmally awful the results have been. You refuse to reconsider them because it would tamper with your
What's
precious
funny about-
ideology.
what's funny- that is amazing that you say that, Franklin. You're the party that won't differentiate between you and socialists. Socialism is the most economic documented
Castro,
failure in the
didn't you?
history of the world,
You
Franklin.
showed that Castro
I tell you what,
his
Franklin,
boss, didn't you?
show me one country. Tell me one country where socialism has been successful.
Who's pushing for socialism?
Your party.
No, they're
you
not.
Had Bernie Sanders
You need-
almost took the nomination, and he's a socialist.
What Bernie Sanders said was, not that you actually care or paid attention, John,
Independent
while you were
socialist.
watching Breitbart.
Independent socialist. That's what he ran as.
What he pointed out was, yes, if you get Social Security, that is in fact socialism.
Franklin, yes
Maybe
or no?
you're opposed
did he call
to it.
himself a socialist?
Sure he did, John.
Did Debbie Wasserman Schultz ever differentiate between the difference between a Democrat and a socialist?
Answer the question,
Answer
John.
that one.
Do you agree with that statement or not?
Did your party...
No. I'm not answering
What
anything
statement,
that
Franklin?
you do. If you get Social Security, is that socialism?
It's a type of socialism.
Okay.
But it's not, Franklin.
Then everybody who gets Social
listen to
Security
me.
is a socialist.
Franklin,
isn't it?
no. That's not what I said.
That's
but
what I'm saying.
Franklin,
No credibility.
You going to let anybody talk now?
No, I'm not. I'm going to keep talking like
you going to tell me the
every
difference
week,
between a
John.
Democrat and a socialist?
This is what you do every week.
All
right,
Tell me the difference between a
bring it up.
Democrat and a socialist?
Yes, a Democrat tells the truth.
You mean like Debbie Wasserman Schultz
Unlike
did
the
in her?
Republicans
You mean like Debbie
who
Wasserman
lie
Schultz
every
did,
single
Franklin?
day.
You mean like your party
Every
who lied in their
day.
emails?
You're lying.
The party who
You're
actually
lying.
skewed your process
I
to
keep saying it
support
over
Hillary?
and over again till a rational
Like
thought.
Donna Brazil?
Wait a minute.
Like Donna
No.
Brazil? Did Donna Brazil lie, Franklin?
Did Donald Trump lie?
Did Donna Brazil
every
lie?
day of his campaign?
Did Donna Brazil
I
lie?
didn't mean that. I didn't really
Franklin?
mean to say that. I didn't
Did
actually say it.
your
I
party
did say it, but that's not what I meant.
lied continuously, and the
All
emails
day long,
exposed
John,
it?
I'll have this debate with you about whose party's the honest party.
Oh, I
All
don't think
day
you can,
long.
Franklin.
And you'll lose it all
All
day long. And you'll lose it
I'll
all day
start
long.
with the president-elect
And
of
you'll
the
lose it
United
all day
States.
long.
Let's take one
campaign,
candidate
one
at a
day
time.
after one issue after another.
I think you'll lose that one, Franklin.
Really?
You
What's
got
the
a-
definition
you
of
got
this,
lying
Franklin?
Hillary.
I'll lose
You
that
got
one.
lying Obama.
I'll
You got
lose that.
lying
Why
Clinton.
doesn't Bill Clinton have a law license to practice in Arkansas anymore, Franklin?
Because he engaged in an unethical act
What'd he
and
do?
lost it.
What'd he do?
He lied under oath,
What's
John.
that called?
Lying.
Is
I
that
just
called
said it's
perjury?
called a
Is
lie.
that called perjury? The
Sometimes
biggest
it
of
can be.
lies?
It can be.
So the lion of your party is a perjurer.
Okay.
Thanks. That's
All
really all people need to hear.
Really?
Yep.
How about if we
That's
just
it.
put all
Show me
of
one of mine that have been convicted of perjury. Show me a president that's convicted of perjury. Can't, except Bill Clinton, your guy.
Really?
Yep.
Who's the worst? John,
Well,
this
there's a
question's for
good
you.
chance we'll have a new one soon.
John, this question is for you.
Yep.
Who was the worst Republican president we ever had?
Well, that's a
Well, that goes. You'd have to go way
Well,
back.
It's a
I'm
deep bench.
I'm asking you a question.
It'll take a while to sort through it and figure it out.
Yeah, because they're all pretty good. So you're
Oh,
right,
yeah.
Franklin. Thanks.
George
for
W.
supporting
was
that.
great. Nixon was fantastic.
They
Oh, my
actually-
God. Don't even
they
get
all
me
did
started
some
on
good
Hoover.
things. You want to talk about LBJ and his
Sure.
White House tapes,
Sure.
Franklin?
Sure. Let's
Where
put
he
them up there.
uses the N-word on a regular basis
Let's put them right
and
up
says,
there.
I'm using
put 'em right up
government
there
to
and
get them to
compare.
vote Democrat for the next
You got
200
the same
years.
thing with Richard Nixon, too, won't you?
Oh, yeah, but
Okay.
but here's the difference,
Okay.
Franklin. We admitted about Richard Nixon. Y'all don't admit
Really?
about
When?
LBJ.
You just said they were all pretty good.
I said he did
Tell
some
me
good
about it.
things. I didn't say he was pretty good. I said he did some good things.
I'll put
he
LBJ
opened
next to
China.
Nixon any day.
He opened China. He did a lot of things good.
Which your guy wants to close. Such a great policy.
Well, actually, Franklin, what we want is we want some parity on the world stage. We want people to respect us again.
Okay.
The world is burning up around us, and your guy goes out and says the world's in a better
your guy's
condition.
going to save it with his good buddy.
By the way,
Brad.
Franklin, you know your Iran deal. Did you hear what happened last week with it?
Yeah, the International Atomic Energy Agency said that Iran was in compliance with the deal, and they were pleased with it. That's what happened last week.
Is the deal binding, Franklin?
If they don't want the sanctions, it's binding.
Well,
They
what
snap
makes
back
it-
if they
What
don't.
makes an agreement binding? You're a lawyer. What makes an agreement binding?
Enforceability?
Well, but all right, let's say you negotiate a contract for me, Franklin, and you give it to me and you hand me the pen and I refuse to sign it. Is it binding on me?
Then you don't actually have an agreement at that point.
Well, guess what? The Iran deal was never signed. Obama did not require the president of Iran to sign the deal. It's not
That
even
doesn't
a deal.
mean you can't have an oral agreement, John. That's
Oh,
a
so it's a
different thing.
handshake. Now we're doing international treaties on a handshake.
Are they
with the
complying
leading
with it or not?
No, actually they're not. Franklin.
The agency that's responsible for looking at it, who's not the Obama administration, says they are.
Okay, Franklin.
By the way, the Israelis are actually pretty
They
happy
have
with it
no
now.
snap inspections. They've said that military sites are not subject to inspection. They've actually launched rockets which are in violation of the law. That same group you're talking about.
And the same analysis says the Israelis are now actually closer to the Saudis and the other groups than they were before the agreement.
Did you
it's
see?
actually worked out exactly the way we wanted it to.
Oh my gosh! See, that's the problem here.
You're trapped. You're trapped in ideology.
I'm trapped in a guy who wouldn't put it before the Senate for a vote because he knew his own Democrat Party would vote against it, and now we find out it's not even signed.
You surrendered the independence of your brain years ago, John. You won't even look at things because somebody tells you what to think.
Franklin, would you ever allow an agreement to go unsigned as a lawyer? So you would tell your party, by the way, the other party didn't agree to sign this document, but I still think it's okay.
Then, John, it works both ways. That means we wouldn't have.
You're right. We're not bound by it, which means Trump can throw it in the garbage.
But he's not going to.
Yes, but here's the problem.
He's
Franklin.
not going
Wait a minute. What did the Iranians want out of the deal? What did they get out of the deal?
They want their economy open.
They want the sanctions lifted, right?
And what do we want?
Have they been lifted?
Some of them.
So if Trump throws this agreement in the deal in the trash, what can we do back to the Iranians? Because we've already nothing. The Europeans won't snap anything back, Franklin.
Okay. Well, you couldn't have.
So in other words, your guy gave it away, and now didn't even get him to sign it.
They gave it away to the Europeans.
Your guy gave it away.
What were
the Europeans wanted it. They wanted to do the trade deal.
Right.
They were greedy business people. And your guy gave the greedy businessmen in Europe their deal with nothing in return, not even a signed agreement.
John, you have now become a Democrat.
Well, Franklin,
now your arguments are based upon criticizing greed.
Wait a minute. Is Obama?
I don't criticize greed, but you got to recognize
Is Obama an attorney?
Yes, he's an attorney.
Or he was. Would he? I mean, he knows
your Senator Bob
agreement.
Corker has said he shouldn't throw it out.
And at the time, I disagreed with Corker when he supported the agreement. It's a terrible agreement.
Donald Trump
Franklin
has said he's not going to throw it out.
Well, there's no point to throw it. You're right, Franklin, because your guy gave away the farm.
He's getting what we wanted.
You can't unring a bell, Franklin. Your guy rang the bell, got nothing in return, and now there's nothing we can do. Gave away the farm.
Let's take a break. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Backfire with Steve Hickson. We'll be right back after this.
You are listening to WOOP-LP, Cleveland, Tennessee. WOOP FM is a broadcasting service of the Traditional Music Resource Center, and we play America's original music.
Whoop FM wants to know, what do you really think about us? Call and leave us a message at 614-5553, and we'll play it on the air. Love us? Hate us? Let us know. 614-5553.
Tired of carrying around cash in your pocket and tired of banks? Visit usmoneycard.com and get your prepaid debit card to use wherever MasterCard is accepted. It's a smart and safe alternative to carrying cash, and it's convenient. Even if you have a bill that requires a check, US Money Card has that too. Visit usmoneycard.com today and find out how to get your reloadable prepaid debit card. Log on, load up, and love your US Money Card. Visit usmoneycard.com for complete details.
Check into cash. The cash you need today is waiting for you at Check into Cash. It's your money, so come in and get it.
Get a payday advance today for up to $425. At Check into Cash, we make it quick, easy, and confidential.
The cash you need is right here, so stop worrying and stop in to Check into Cash today.
Borrowers often use payday advances over a period of months, which can be expensive. Restrictions apply. See store for details.
It's me, it's Fro Daddy, saying tune in to the Fro Daddy Show Monday through Friday, 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Local news, national blues, and a lot of stuff you just can't use. In Cleveland, Tennessee at 99.9 FM and around the world in a daze at WOOPFM.com. I might even play your requests, so call me. And if you see WOOP on your caller ID, you better answer the phone, because I won't leave you alone. Fro Daddy.
Hello, my name is Andy Figglestaller with Ed Jacobs & Associates. We are an employee benefit and insurance broker in business for the past 20 years. The new healthcare law, also known as Obamacare, has finally arrived. The law is complex and the choices are confusing. You have questions, we have the answers. It is our passion to find cost-effective solutions for every client. The solutions will be different for every person or business. Let our knowledge, experience, and passion go to work for you. Contact us today and let us assist you through this process. Our phone number is 4 423-473-0202, or you can find us on the web at edjacobs.com.
At Buy Here, Pay Here USA, we don't just sell cars, we buy them. Bring your car, truck, or SUV down to Buy Here, Pay Here USA, and we'll give you a free appraisal with no obligation. We pay top dollar for most cars, so before you trade in your vehicle, come see us for an appraisal. At Buy Here, Pay Here USA, we pay the most for your car. Visit Buy Here, Pay Here USA in Cleveland, Dayton, or Chattanooga, or go to buyheresellhere.com. That's buyheresellhere.com. Restrictions apply. See store for details.
No dealers allowed.
Jackson Catnapper, family owned and operated in Cleveland since 1933, offering the best with over 70 styles of recliners, sofas, electronic lift chairs, full living room packages. Call Mike now at 961-7239 because Jackson Catnapper now offers sales to the public
every Saturday. That's right, every Saturday.
From 8 in the morning to 1 in the afternoon. Or call Mike at 961-7239. Or go see him
every Saturday
at 1911 King Edward Avenue, just across from the main plant. Jackson Catnapper, family owned and operated in Cleveland since 1933. 961-7239.
No dealers allowed.
Train engineers put our heating and cooling products for almost every test imaginable. So while you're sending your kids to school, they're sending 10,000 volts through a compressor. Testing like this is the reason Train is so reliable, and why our engineers prefer their steaks. Well done.
Ready to indulge in Train comfort? Call a Train comfort specialist at Mechanical Systems, 336-5739. High-quality service and installation for more than 30 years.
It's hard to stop a train. Really hard.
You're listening to Backfire with Steve Hickson on Whoop FM. Call 423-614-5553 to join in on the conversation. Now, back to Backfire.
All right, we're back in the studio. I want to say this, Mr. Obama, I'm sitting here looking at an article that said, I want to develop a new generation of Democratic talent. He was speaking on the NPR radio in a recorded last week and aired Monday. Obama accepted some responsibility for his party's failure to retain some of the rural and the Rust Belt voters who supported him in 2008 and 2012, but voted for Trump. He said Democrats are by nature more attracted to addressing nationwide and international issues, a tendency that has allowed Republicans in recent years to build from the ground up in small local races. What do you think?
I think he's delusional.
Well, I tell you what this tells me, that we just think we're rid of Obama here.
There's no class here, like we've seen in former presidents, both Republican and Democrat. You know, he's going out the door doing stuff to try and bind the next president's hands, which is certainly tasteless. His wife doesn't feel like there's any hope anymore, which is one of the most arrogant things I've ever heard anybody in the world say. Hope. That without them, there's no hope. You know, which also is completely blind to the idea that we're a divided nation. Look, I'm happy with who won, but I at least understand why someone on the other side of the aisle is not happy. Obviously, Michelle Obama thinks that anybody that doesn't agree with her is just, I guess, either an idiot or an evil, mean person. So they're very egotistical people. And him talking about building the bench, that's like Che Guevara after executing half the people in Cuba going, well, we need to build some new Cuban citizens. Yeah, maybe you shouldn't have executed as many as you did.
Franklin, I'm going to ask you this. Do you think the Russian hacking cost Hillary the election?
I don't know the answer to that. I don't think we will ever know the answer to that question completely, but I do think that it's a very serious issue that deserves a very serious bipartisan investigation.
Now, I'm going to agree with Franklin. We need to find out what they did. I don't think it had anything to do with her losing the election, but it's still, the action is the action.
Do you think the FBI Director, James Comey's October 28th letter disclosing a new investigation of emails from her,
I think it
damaged her?
I think it stopped the slide that was going on in Trump's numbers following all those scandals that were coming out at that point. It changed the narrative. Whether that affected it or not, again, I can't say that either.
In early October, before all of this happened, her polling numbers came out almost equal to what the election result was.
But his numbers is what we're talking about.
Well, but Franklin, it didn't.
Now, I will say this. Yesterday, we got to see the warrant that they applied for with the court, and it was really, really flimsy.
Well, a federal judge had to agree to
I understand they did that, but I'm shocked that the warrant was actually granted by the court.
Well, let me ask you a question. Had Huma Abedin simply turned it over months earlier in the summer, you wouldn't have had that warrant.
Well,
so once again, all of this goes back to
emails they already had.
Right, but the point is, Franklin,
no.
Was it legal to have the emails on that computer? No.
The ones that were on it apparently didn't violate any laws. They were personal.
Actually, we don't know that. It's highly redacted. And we don't know what evidence they found.
I know they concluded there was nothing there.
Yeah, but here's the point, Franklin. If they're all duplicates, then you fall back to the original argument in June.
The question that was asked was, do I think that changed the outcome? I don't know the answer.
Do you think that?
I think it was an extraordinarily close election.
You know, I remember Hillary, when she was giving testimony, made the comment, at this point, what difference does it make? Do you feel that she ought to say that now?
Well, if you mean, do I think that they ought to be trying to overturn the election or something? No, I don't think that should happen. I think that would open up a can of worms.
Are you embarrassed by the way your party has acted about the election results?
Yeah. I think passionate people do things passionately.
What would you have given that same kind statement if the results were reversed and we were acting like this?
I did give that same kind statement when George W. Bush won the last time.
No. If it had been reversed, if Trump had lost, and Trump's people were doing what Hillary's people and Jill Stein's people have been doing.
I was on the losing side in 2000 under iffy circumstances, and I magnanimously said, that's the result. We live with it. We move forward.
I know, but I'm asking you about how Hillary's people have been acting. Are you not embarrassed by this?
Embarrassed?
Are you not embarrassed by the woman out in Washington State that's screaming and having to be drug out of the room while the electors do the job they're required to do?
In New York, they're giving them therapy.
I think, John, and with all due respect, if you use the rhetoric that Mr. Trump used during
so in other words,
election,
you're justifying.
I'm not justifying
yes,
anything.
That's exactly what you're
justifying
doing. You're
anything.
saying in this case it's okay.
I forget. I'm sorry.
That's what you're saying.
I'll
Franklin.
just not finish my sentence.
Look, let me finish
let
your
John
statement.
finish it for
me.
Go ahead,
it's wrong no matter what. If our people were doing it, I'd condemn it. You ought to condemn this.
First of all,
it's wrong.
I doubt that, but because we've seen the alternative that.
Franklin, tell me what I did in 08 and 012. Tell me when I went down and pitched a fit.
There wasn't any question about what had happened in those elections.
Franklin, when did the president know about the Russian hacking?
Years ago.
Sometime in September, from what I've seen.
No, actually, that's not true. Do you know when they found out about it?
Tell me, John.
They found out about it in the summer of 2015. Okay. Obama was briefed of breach of attempts to breach U.S. political parties as early as 2015.
Okay.
Didn't do anything. Now, this is a statement.
Didn't do anything, or didn't
Let me read you the quote. I'll read you the quote. This is a senior State Department official to the New York Times, not Fox News. This is a quote. Everyone agreed you had to push back at the Russians and push back hard, but it didn't happen. Without any response in the White House, they continued their hacking. Now, that's a senior State Department official.
Okay.
So over a year ago, Obama knew it. Here's the difference. He thought Hillary was going to win. It wasn't until she lost that this blew up.
Well, at that point, the Democrats hadn't even picked their candidate at that point, John.
Actually, they had, because when the WikiLeaks emails came out,
it
was clear. Yes, it was clear in 2015 you all had already rigged the primary system for Hillary to win.
I think it decided when Obama won. I want to change the tone a little bit here. I've got a guest I invited to come in this morning because I saw something on the news yesterday. It got my attention about guns prices going up, but I come to find out it was in California over a new law out there. But I've invited Glenn Coronas from the U.S. Money Shop. Glenn, good morning.
Hey, guys. How are you?
Anyway, I thought I'd have an expert come in and talk about guns this morning since we've talked about them so much all year long. Glenn, tell me, what do you do with guns? How many guns do y'all own at U.S. Money Shops?
Own or sell?
Sell.
We sell a lot of guns. Actually, our gun sales from last year are up 14%. We've sold quite a few in the 12 locations this year. Gun sales are pretty unique, I guess. About 85% of the guns we sell are handguns, and probably the other 15% are long guns, whether it's rifles, ARs, shotguns, or whatever else. It's been a very unique year, let's put it that way.
What's the hottest gun selling right now?
Probably anything that's in a 9mm. 2 years ago it was 40 cals and handguns, and everybody's pretty much going to 9mm now.
Mm-hmm. What do you think caused the surge in gun sales?
I think this year, a lot of it had to do with the election. I think some people say they were down this year. We were obviously up 14%. I think there's a couple factors. Like I said, the election. I think some of it may be due to the marketing campaigns that we've done in U.S. Money Shops. But I think overall in the industry, I think it's seen about a 10% overall increase.
I'm looking at something I wrote down here where they were talking yesterday on the news, and they were talking about gun sales were up 40%.
Yeah, I think I went back and saw an article in October. They really, really spiked. But I haven't seen the 40% increase. I mean, it may be, certain areas throughout the nation.
John, what's going on in California? What was this that spiked the AR-15?
They changed the assault weapons laws in California. They made it much more difficult to own, much more difficult to sell. And, it's like we've talked about this lots. Democrats believe you force people to do something. Republicans believe you encourage them. The Democrats wanted to protect the spotted owl in North Carolina, so they said you can't cut this oak tree down that they nest in, and you can't cut anything for about 100 yards around this oak tree, which took up acre. Every time you had an oak tree, you lost an acre. So right before the law went into effect, guess what happened? People that had those oak trees clear-cut the forest, cut all the damn trees down because they knew they weren't going to be able to. In California, they've made it much more difficult to own these assault weapons. So what's happened? People are going out and they're buying them before the law takes effect. Obama's been the best gun salesman the gun industry's ever seen.
He really has, hasn't
he? He has. And I think that next year is probably going to be a very challenging year for the gun industry. I think sales will slow down quite a bit. I mean, people will still buy them. But, we've seen our demographics of who buys guns has really changed in the last 3 to 5 years.
More and more women are buying guns.
Absolutely. I mean, it used to be that women would come in with somebody else and look, and they'd be petrified or whatever else. We see women coming in on their own buying guns, colored guns, like blues, yellows, everything else has really changed the market. Pink, that's right. Pink's kind of cool right now. More teal is really the hot thing right now. But, I mean, it's every walk of life that you see coming in buying guns.
How about Christmas presents? They buying guns for Christmas?
Yeah, we sell a lot of guns for Christmas presents. I mean, you just got to be careful. I mean, there's, with the selling a gun, there's laws that you got to follow. I'm
glad you brought that up because we've had this argument.
There's hundreds of laws.
That's right.
If I come in there to buy a gun, what do I have to do?
Well, let's back up a second. The gun business, I think a lot of people think it is just greatly profitable. There's a lot of work, a lot of money, a lot of training associated with it. Individual comes in, they want to purchase a firearm, they have to fill out a federal document. It's called a 4473. They must have a valid.
What happens if they lie on that?
If they lie, we don't do the transaction.
But it's a federal crime.
That's absolutely
correct. It's a federal crime to lie.
We take it one step further, though. If somebody says anything out of line, let's say they come in, they say, well, you know what? I'm going to use this gun and I'm going to pop a cap in my wife's butt or whatever, okay?
Yeah,
There's something sarcastic. We stop the transaction. We just won't allow it to happen.
Yeah.
So, with selling a gun, you just really got to pay attention to what's going on.
So there's, go ahead and the form you're filling out, you got to fill the forms out, and where does that go and so forth?
In Tennessee, it's submitted to TICS, which is a federal background check. We're not associated with making the decision. They fill out the document. We really cannot instruct them how to fill it out. It's got to be legible, everything else. Everything's got to be proper. And we submit it. It comes back whether they can get approved or not approved.
And where does it go to be approved?
It's a federal database.
All right. So there is a federal database.
There's been a federal database since 1994, I believe.
So what's the problem with guns? Right. I know we've had this argument.
Well, part of the problem is what gets entered into the database.
Okay.
Right.
What's the problem?
Well, I mean, all the Democrats are fighting. They're wanting to shut down guns. They want to take them away,
that's
aren't
not
they?
true.
Okay. I thought
Hillary collects guns, other people's.
I mean, I thought that's where the Democrats were trying to.
Some Democrats, not all.
Okay.
Yeah, Joe Manchin, who'll probably change parties this next couple of years.
Okay. So, in other words, the Democrats are okay with gun sales?
No.
Democrats want people who shouldn't have guns, that we all agree shouldn't have guns, to not have them.
Okay. How do we prevent that? Well, they're filling out the federal forms.
There's never going to be a perfect answer to that, but that doesn't mean the process can't be more rigorous sometimes. I personally am not offended at all by things like a 3-day waiting period to buy a gun. It has a very simple purpose.
Well,
if you're really angry on a particular day, that may not be the day.
You're absolutely right, but that's an anecdotal evidence, and let me give you an anecdotal.
It's not anecdotal. It's from somebody who goes out and deals with domestic violence people in court.
Franklin. Let me give you.
They make bad decisions.
Franklin, let me give you an anecdotal reply. There's someone on the other side of that domestic violence incident. So if you're a woman and your husband has threatened to kill you, 3 days can make the difference between living or dying.
Okay.
How long does it take, Glenn, to get approved?
In Tennessee, it depends on if Tix is running fast that day. It could be instantaneously. It could be a couple hours. It's pretty much the same day all the time.
So this is a national database where
it's a law the NRA pushed and supported.
Okay.
Now, one of the problems I will give you, mental health is one of the big problems.
Right.
Because each state determines how they report whether you've been entered into the mental health system. And there are a lot of problems with that. For example, this administration, the Obama administration, took any veteran who had had his power of attorney removed and said, you can't own a gun. Well, the problem is, if you come in and you've had both your legs blown off and you're laying in a bed, they will give your power of attorney to someone else. That doesn't mean that you're not mentally able or emotionally able to own a gun. That's a physical determination. The Obama administration didn't make that distinction. They said any veteran who has had his power of attorney removed is now barred from owning a gun. So there are problems like that come up that's where the liberals take one issue and they run with it.
Why would they bar, do a power of attorney?
Because Obama's anti-gun. I mean, it's clear he's anti-gun.
Okay.
And he comes from the most violent city in the country who has the strictest gun control laws in the country, and yet he still thinks that somehow the system is the problem.
How do you feel, Franklin?
Well, first of all, President Obama didn't propose a single piece of gun legislation in 8 years. So it's an absurd statement. He repeatedly said that he supported the Second Amendment. He just wanted to see some reasonable
He actually
restrictions.
threatened to do it through executive order.
I'd like to ask you, Glenn, what would you like to see changed about the process?
I don't know if
Anything?
I don't know if I can really give you a definitive answer right now on that. I mean, I've had thoughts. The mental illness is something that comes up, but I don't really know how you change that.
I think I like what you said there when you're talking to someone. If they say anything derogatory, that you can stop the sale.
Absolutely.
You have the right to stop the sale.
Look, do you think anybody of any kind of decency wants to sell a gun and then find out later that person went out and took a life with the gun they sold them? Decent people don't want to do that. The problem here, I'll cut to the chase. You can discuss this all day. About 97% of all guns used in the commission of a crime are obtained through illegal means.
Correct. Yep.
Yeah.
So you're not, the problem is not legal gun sales. The problem is illegal gun sales.
Franklin, what would you like to see done about the gun sales? I mean, if you could put something in place, what would you like to see done?
Me personally?
Yes.
As I said, I don't mind the waiting period.
Okay.
I don't mind mandatory gun safety training. I don't see the downside to that. It's no different to me than the way we treat people with automobiles. We don't turn them loose on the street just because they're a certain age.
Now, here's a funny thing. I probably wouldn't, I think it's a government program and it's expense, but I probably wouldn't argue with him about that. That's where people could reach common ground if we weren't afraid that the ultimate goal is to confiscate our guns.
I think we could work out what particular databases that you might be on ought to bar you from firearm purchases, and we ought to be able to work out an appeals process for that. That's a reasonable way of doing it.
Some of the things that they did through just executive action didn't have any appeal, so you had no...
respectfully, there'd have to be a willing partner on the other side to create that system. I think those are all things that could be done that are reasonable, okay? That I would think that 85-90% of Americans would support.
The Virginia Tech shooter had been all through the mental health system in Virginia.
You're never going to have a system that's perfect.
That's right.
Well, part of the problem...
That doesn't mean it can't be better.
But part of the problem, Franklin, it was your party that insisted on turning all these mental health people loose in the 70s and 80s, and that protect their supposed, their privacy. But that's the very problem with reporting them and barring them from owning a gun. So you need to decide, the progressives need to decide which side of that issue you're going to come down on. Because your people are going to turn around and say it's a violation of their rights to report them just because they had a mental breakdown.
Well, I think it's a little more complicated than that. But
what about I've heard a lot of controversy about the gun shows, the regulation at gun shows needs to be tightened up. Is that right or wrong?
You've heard it, but that's BS too.
Okay.
They go to gun shows. Do y'all go? Well, there are gun dealers that go to gun shows all the time. Right. And guess what? Every federal law applies at the gun show that applies in their shop. The only thing that happens at a gun show that's not regulated is if I decide to carry a couple of my guns down, you check them in, you have to unzip them and show what you've got and show that they're unloaded and show that the bolt is locked. But if I'm walking around carrying a gun and someone comes up to me and says, "That's a good-looking gun. What do you want for it?" That's the gun sale that they have a problem with.
What you also have is some private individuals who show up at these sales with a duffel bag in the back of their trunk with 15 or 20 guns in it, and they go around looking for people for the specific purpose of trying to sell them.
And dealers would love to shut those people down.
Right. Okay. So
legal gun dealers
I think
would
that's
love to
the
shut
concern
those
that
people
we're
down.
talking about. We're not talking about two guys who just happen to be gun enthusiasts.
When Chuck Schumer puts forward his solution for it, it would actually bar an uncle from giving a gun to his nephew inside a family. And I'll give you a perfect example. Chuck Schumer is the leading Democrat authority on gun control. He went on one of the Sunday morning talk shows when he was a congressman, and he was the leading authority, and he said, "We have got to stop these high-capacity stocks." Franklin, do you know what a stock is?
Yes, I
Now,
do.
he's the Democrat leading authority.
Who designated him the leading authority?
You all did.
No, I didn't.
He's your incoming minority leader. You
Well,
just
how does that
elected
make him the leading authority on guns?
I don't know, Franklin. Somebody ought to told him to shut up.
You just made that statement up.
Well,
nobody ever did that.
He was the loudest voice in the Democrat Party.
Okay.
How's that?
Loudest
Is that
voice,
better?
That's different.
All
That's
right.
a completely
well,
different.
the loudest voice in the Democrat Party didn't know the difference between
Leading
a
authority.
stock and a magazine. And I'm supposed to trust that he's going to be reasonable in gun laws? Matter of fact, in Connecticut and New York, when they passed their restriction on the magazine capacity, they failed to put a police exemption. So every policeman on the street was in violation of the law because they had high-capacity magazines.
I'm glad to know that you own a gun, Franklin.
I own more than one.
Oh, okay, good deal.
But if they want to make me go take a gun safety course, I won't object.
And by the way, do you know what the largest increased type of gun for the hunting industry is? The AR.
Right.
The AR that they say has no use outside of killing people is the fastest selling gun for hunting.
Why is that gun particularly?
Because it's a well-built, manufactured gun that works flawlessly.
Okay.
You know, ask yourself this. If you were buying a car and they said, here's one car that's kind of crappy, it clunks around, and it might break down on you on a regular basis. Here's a car that's extremely well built, fit and finished, and will never fail you.
The wink and nod is, everybody buy these and just say they're for hunting.
Actually, Franklin, they're for hunting. I'm probably going to buy one in 308.
You probably got 11 already, John.
I've got a man right here that'll sell you a bargain on one.
I can take care of you.
I'm going to buy one in a 308, partly because the 308 is a suitable round for deer hunting.
How much does that sell for?
You know what? We sell a lot of you're talking about AR-10. That they run from $799 all the way up to $3,000-$4,000. It really depends what the individual wants.
What about someone who, right now, I guess, if I invested in weapons,
over Obama's
term, I could probably get rich with it.
Ruger has seen about a 275% increase in their stock. Smith & Wesson saw a over 600% increase in their stock. Now, interesting enough, the day after the election this fall, Smith & Wesson stock went down 14%.
Yep.
Because everybody thought Hillary was going to win. Right. And so they'd all bought stock, and then when Trump won, they went, well, gosh, my guns are safe for a while.
Yeah, I really think next year is going to be a very challenging year for the gun industry.
He's right.
Did you have customers come in that was buying guns just for investments?
You don't see it as much as you used to because, like I said, the demographics has really changed. I mean, everybody buys guns.
All right.
A woman is always at a disadvantage to a man physically. A gun is a great equalizer.
What's the process? You talked about people buying them for Christmas presents. What is the process for doing that in a legal means and being honest on a form? Because it says, are you buying this for yourself? If not.
Yeah, I mean, if they can say they're buying it for a gift. I mean, if we have doubt about something, we're probably going to ask some more questions. I mean, there's only so much due diligence you can do. I mean, if it seems odd, then we probably won't do the transaction. But people buy them as gifts all the time.
Well, let me ask Franklin a question. When's the last time you bought a gun, Franklin?
2 years ago.
All right. When you bought it and you're filling out this form, did it strike you as odd that they wanted to know what race you were? Explain to me, as a supporter of government bureaucracies, what difference first off, legally by the law passed in the 90s, they're not allowed to keep any of this information. So why would you ask whether you're black or white or Hispanic or Indian or Asian?
I think the government gets obsessed with keeping data sometimes.
Isn't that as a civil libertarian, does that not scare you?
I don't know. I never really thought about it before.
Well, and the law requires them to destroy the record once the background check has been passed. What's the point of asking that question?
It requires the dealer who has the...
No, it requires the federal government. No. The federal government is not allowed to keep it. So once you pass the background check, the federal government is supposed to destroy the fact that you applied and bought a gun.
And that was supposedly what? To prevent them from having some kind of registry or something?
You mean like Hitler did?
No,
he had a registry.
Was that the theory?
Yes, that was the theory, that they didn't want the government to have a registry.
Whatever.
But my point is, if you're not going to have a registry and you're not legally allowed to have a registry, what's the point of asking whether you're black or white? And even if you are keeping it, why ask?
I suspect the answer, John, is because there could be 19 John Stanberrys in the United States of America, one of whom could be ineligible to buy a gun because of convictions or so forth, and it's an additional piece of evidence that allows them to determine if we're talking about the same person or not. Not every John Stanberry is a white Anglo-Saxon Protestant.
Okay.
I want to ask a question about something totally different talking about this morning. So, Glenn Coronas, I want to thank you for coming in. I want to talk to you a little bit more after I finish asking this question. President Obama is in the process, or may have already done it, signing a bill to permanently ban offshore drilling.
No. He's not signing a bill. This is another executive action without the will of the people being involved, because he's an autocratic, dictatorial egotist.
Why would he do that right now?
Because he's an egotist and he's tying Trump's hands.
Why would he do that, Franklin?
Because he believes
he's right.
That these conservation measures are in the long-term best interest of the country. That's why.
Because he's an egotist.
He's
going out the door, Franklin. He's also setting records for the number of pardons.
It's a lot more complicated than all that. I mean,
it's from a 1953 law.
I mean, for example, let me give you an example. For all the criticism, say, of the new Secretary of State choice because of his ExxonMobil ties to Russia and so forth, even that's very complicated. The ExxonMobil opposed all those sanctions against Russia over invading Crimea, but ExxonMobil also vigorously supported the Paris climate deal. So, I don't know. It's a lot more complicated than that.
Frankly, are you bothered at all that he's at almost 1,200 sentences commuted now, which all the previous presidents were under 200?
No, unlike all those others, he's not pardoning rich white guys.
Did you know?
I hope he sends them all to Chicago.
This ties in to what we were just talking about. Did you know that of the last Monday's list that he just released, 49 had been convicted of firearms-related offenses?
Yes. I do.
I thought he's against the use of firearms, and it's a terrible disease, and we've got to fix it.
First of all, the president never said he's against the use of firearms.
Well, first off, he said they were nonviolent offenders he was going to commute. 49 of these people committed gun crimes.
Okay.
All right, guys. I want to thank you.
Maybe they had the right demographic
hold on. Before we leave, we got to say Merry Christmas in unison. Merry Christmas, everyone.
There you go.
There we go.
And the warmth and emotion in that was overwhelming. Okay, fine. Merry Christmas.
And Happy New Year.
All right. Okay. All right. Way to go, Frank. Hey, we will not be here next week. We are going to take a week off next week.
Because we're going to have new guns to shoot.
Yeah, we'll have new guns to go shoot. Franklin's asking, are we taking off just next week or 2 weeks?
I don't know.
I tell you what, folks, if you hear us, we're here. And if we
there you go. That's how to play.
We know we won't be here next week. Okay?
Franklin's got it.
Thank you, Franklin. He's going to Polk County.
You better have a gun.
You represent the Democrat or Republican?
Are we still in the air?
Yes, we're still in the air. I want to thank Glenn Cronus. I want to ask you, Glenn, U.S. Money Shops is amazing to me how quick, how big that company's gotten. How many stores you have now?
12 stores. Got a 13th one. They'll be coming to Knoxville in probably the next couple months.
So tell me where all your locations are. Right
we've got obviously 11. It will be in Tennessee, then 2 in Georgia. So
okay. Anyway, it's amazing. If you've never been in, basically, this is the Walmart of pawn shops, isn't it?
That's absolutely correct.
That's the way I look at it. It's the Walmart of pawn shops when you go into one of these shops. There is a lot of stuff there.
Say the Target.
Okay, the Walmart, the Target of a
little more upscale.
But it's pretty amazing if you've never been in one of these stores. There is a lot of stuff. There's tools. There's I took a friend of mine in there. It was a contractor one time. He set up an account for his employees to get their tools there, and you know, you could actually go buy some tools cheaper, and you can go rent some tools sometimes. Right.
Yeah, we tell people that all the time. If you got a weekend project that you want to use a circular saw, why go to Lowe's and spend $70 for one? Come to U.S. Money Shops, pay $30 for it.
And plus, they can bring it back and sell it back to you.
That's absolutely right. I tell you though,
used it.
That's right. You're talking about the locations though. You know, we moved the Athens location last year to a 23,000 square foot building. That's the one you really need to go check out. It's very unique. It's got the 3rd largest taxidermy collection in the United States, and it's just phenomenal.
That is a unbelievable store. So I want to thank Glenn for coming in this morning. I asked him to come by and talk about guns a little bit. I was going to bring up this issue, but I also wanted to tell you, the listeners, about U.S. Money Shop. I found it's a great place to go shop. Go by there if you've never been and give them a try. You'll like what you see and hear there.
I appreciate that.
Hey, Steve, can I be bipartisan and do one thing before we go in the spirit of Christmas?
Sure.
I want to brag. Hillary Clinton's had a pretty tough time, and she has finally she's finally been successful, and she's actually won something. I know she's lost a lot lately, but Monday she actually had more people defect from her as an elector than anyone in history since the 70s. So she was successful. She actually beat Trump. More of her electors defected from her than defected from Trump.
She even lost more votes when they counted the votes.
So I just,
she's 0 for 3.
She's won something now.
Bye, Clinton. See you later. Hey, we'll see you next year. Bye-bye.
U.S. Money Shops.
When money's tight, you'll be